Okay, let's dive right into this explainer. Today, we're unpacking a truly fascinating and honestly kind of mind blowing paradox about human relationships. And believe it or not, it all revolves around a midnight storm, a redundancy email, and a lemon drizzle cake. We've all been taught how to figure out who our real friends are, right? But what if the way we measure love and friendship is completely backwards? To really get this, I want you to imagine a friend. Let's call her Priya. No, you've just received a devastating redundancy email. Your life feels like it's literally in free fall. And within 50 minutes, Priya drives an hour through a flooded city, rain just coming down at absolute sheets, to sit on your kitchen floor. She brings wine, she brings painkillers, and she brings a lemon drizzle cake. She sits right there with you until 3 a.m., letting you just repeat the same 3 panic sentences over and over. If you asked yourself in that exact moment, you'd probably say she loved you more than anyone alive. I mean, for sure, right? But here is where the story takes a really interesting turn. Fast forward 2 years. Your life isn't on fire anymore. In fact, you've just received one small, modest, hard-won piece of good news. It's something you'd wanted for a decade, and it finally came through. So naturally, you text Priya before almost anyone else. Just 3 little sentences, ending with an exclamation mark, and hey, we don't hand those out lightly, right? So how long does it take for this friend, the one who drove through a literal midnight storm, to reply? 9 hours. And when the text finally pings through, it just reads flatly, "Aw, nice one, X." That's it. 9 agonizing hours for a flat, completely distracted dismissal. And honestly, it completely exposes a massive, hidden flaw in the foundation of that friendship. So the really crucial point here is that this staggering difference in behavior, it isn't a contradiction at all. It's actually a deeply ingrained pattern called performative care. See, some people don't actually love you. They love the part of themselves that gets to rescue you. And the harsh truth is, that part of their ego only has a job when your life is actively up in flames. Once you know the name for this, I promise you, you're going to start seeing it everywhere. There's a really brilliant way to think about this, and it's the fire brigade metaphor. Think about what a fire brigade actually does. They are magnificent and brave in an absolute emergency. They're loud, fast, and 100% necessary when your house is burning down. But the second the flames are out, they pack up their hoses and drive away. Nobody expects the fire crew to stick around for breakfast. And if we compare the two mindsets, it becomes super clear. Hand the fire brigade a crisis, and they are extraordinary. I mean, they thrive in the breakup, the diagnosis, the funeral. But hand them a quiet, totally ordinary Wednesday where absolutely nothing needs saving, and they simply evaporate. Why? Because rescue is the literal only dialect they speak. Genuine care, on the other hand, well, that speaks the language of sustained presence, especially when the smoke clears. This brings us to a massive cultural blind spot we all have. We're all basically taught that a friend in need is a friend indeed. We culturally test our bonds with disaster. But what if we actually have this entirely backwards? What if the real ultimate test of a relationship isn't the crisis at all, but the joy? And there is actual science backing this up too. Psychologist Shelly Gable spent years studying a concept she called capitalization, which is simply the very ordinary act of sharing your good news with someone. Her findings? They completely rearrange everything we thought we knew about connection. She proved that an engaged, genuinely glad-for-you reaction to your wins is actually one of the most powerful and totally overlooked signals of real love. So why is capitalization such a strong indicator? Well, because pity is cheap. Seriously, anyone can pity you. Pity actually flatters the giver. It puts them in a position of strength and power. But being genuinely glad for you, now that asks for something much harder. It requires a person to want your life to be good, even when your success does absolutely nothing for them. You don't find out who loves you when you're breaking. You find out when something goes right. So how does this actually translate into subtle symptoms you can spot in your own everyday life? Well, performative care is rarely super dramatic, which is exactly why it hides so easily inside behavior that looks real. But there are definitely tells. They shrink your good news. Their warmth powers down, kind of like a motion sensor light, the second you leave the room. The apology just becomes the entire relationship, and they offer you logistics instead of genuine emotional attention. Let's look a little closer at that first symptom, shrinking your good news. A vital takeaway here is to watch a person's face in the first 3 seconds after you deliver a win. Why? Because the face simply doesn't know how to lie yet. Before their manners can catch up and they can politely say, "Oh, nice one," you will see that tiny flicker of disinterest or annoyance. And that flicker, that is the truest data you will ever get about the bond. You might also notice the apology takes over completely. God, I'm so sorry, I've been useless, let's catch up soon. They pay this fee so sincerely instead of actually just turning up. It acts exactly like a coin dropped in a parking meter. It buys them another month of your patience without costing them any real effort or sustained presence. This brings us right to the huge difference between logistics and attention. Logistics are cheap, right? Somebody can drive you to the airport, lend you a power drill, or sit with you in an emergency room. But true emotional attention, actually asking how you were doing, and then waiting, without flinching, for the honest answer, that is incredibly expensive. And the fire brigade rarely pays up. Now, before we grab our pitchforks and start drawing up a list of everyone who has ever failed us, I want you to ask yourself a very uncomfortable question. Are you the fire brigade? It leads to a really profound, uncomfortable realization, doesn't it? We have all been the fire brigade at some point. We've all been magnificent at other people's disasters while being totally absent from their ordinary weeks. And why? Because rescuing others makes us feel like a good person. It heavily strokes the ego. Quiet presence, on the other hand, well, that just feels like time. Performative care isn't just some villain in other people. It's a default setting in a lot of us. And letting this default setting run unchecked has some genuinely tragic consequences. Bronnie Ware, a nurse who cared for the dying, documented their top regrets. And one of the biggest? Losing touch with their friends. Not their networking contacts, their real friends. It's that heavy ache of mistaking the fire brigade for the family, resulting in feeling super loved on paper, but deeply, deeply lonely in practice. Why this matters comes down to one remarkably simple fact. You have a fixed number of Wednesdays. Your time is finite, and it is totally unrepeatable. And you might just be spending some of your precious few Wednesdays right now on performances of care, rather than the real thing. So how do we actually fix this? Well, you can't magically turn a performative friend into a real one. But what you can do is stop pouring your energy into the wrong containers and start becoming the right container for the people who actually deserve it. You need to become what we call a kitchen friend. Let's look at 4 highly actionable practices you can use to build real relationships this week. We're going to lead with good news, count the ordinary moments, stop accepting empty apologies, and be present on purpose. Let's break those down. First up, you've got to change how you count your contacts. Look back over the past year. Don't look at who showed up to the funeral or the hospital. Who texted you on a nothing Tuesday about a nothing thing? The people who reach out during the quiet, totally ordinary weeks are the ones who actually hold you in their mind. Value them. Next, we've got to stop accepting the apology meter as currency. If someone constantly offers, "so sorry, let's catch up soon," as their literal only form of contact, just quietly file them under their real name, a fond acquaintance. Move them right out of the friend column, and understand that this is clarity, it's not bitterness. It frees you from expecting a house from someone who only brought a brick. And most importantly, be the kitchen friend on purpose. Pick someone this week whose life is not on fire and turn up for them anyway. Ask them what went right today, and be loudly, genuinely glad for them in those first 3 seconds. Remember, presence is a muscle, and sadly, most of us have only ever trained it for absolute emergencies. It's time to start working it out in the quiet moments. Looking back at our friend Priya on the kitchen floor at 3 a.m., we can still be grateful. She showed up in the storm. And hey, the storm was real. But the lesson here is crystal clear. True love is made of people who can manage both the joy and the sorrow. Not just the lemon drizzle kick and the crisis, but the celebration too. Most of us have been quietly settling for the half who can only manage one. We wait for the person who crossed a flooded city to just once cross the room for our good news. So, as we wrap up this explainer, I'm going to leave you with this final thought to ponder today. Who in your life are you going to practice genuine presence for? When their good news finally arrives, who are you going to cross the room for?